Hello everybody, and I welcome all of you to Online Study for You, and welcome to yet another video. And in this video, we are going to take a look at the Tech Mahindra 2021 Freshers Assessment. And yes, just now the Tech Mahindra assessment has been finished. A lot of you guys have attended it, and most of you are waiting for the solutions. Some of you are preparing for the next year exams, or the later exams are actually closely monitoring the kind of questions, how did the exam go, etc. So in this video, we are going to take a look at the coding section for the Tech Mahindra 2021 Freshers Assessment brought to you by Online Study for You. So on an overview of the examination after assessing the questions, right, what I feel is this exam was very easy. Okay, so this exam was actually called as a tech test, right? The title of this exam was a tech test, and this was the section 3 in the Tech Mahindra examination. And if you actually take a look at the questions, right, I would not say this is actually a tech test. It is, I'm going to call this as a GK test for tech knowledge, about the programming knowledge. It's very simple. It's just one word answer, point blank. You can answer it in 10 minutes tops. And we're going to take a look at these questions. There are totally 26 questions which we are going to take a look at it, out of which 25 MCQs and 1 coding questions were there. Okay, the coding question was also very simple. The other MCQs are dead easy. We're going to take a look, and let's get started without wasting much more time. Right. So let's go for the first question for the examination. The first question in the coding section, the tech test, was a coding question. That is nothing but you have to write a program for this. The question went like this. So write a program to calculate the tax that is given to you, an array of long integers. So you're given an array of long integers. So tax is not applicable until the amount of 100. After that, 10% will be charged for the remaining amount. Okay. So please make note that all calculations are to be done using integers. That is nothing but you should ignore all fractions, that is point something. And you should complete the function called calc total tax. Okay. One example would be for 5. So you'll be given 5 as the input. That is nothing but the number of elements in the given array. And 5 elements of the array would be given: 100, 200, 300, 400, and 500. 5 elements. So what they're saying is you'll have to calculate the tax for it. How do you calculate the tax for it? Is for the first number, that is 100, right? Until the amount of 100, let us take tax here. So for this, tax will be 0. Next, you take 200, right? In this 200, for 100, tax will be 0. For the next 100, there'll be 10% of tax. So 10% of 100 is what? 10 rupees will be the tax here. Next, you take 300. For 300, for first 100 rupees, tax is 0. For the next 200 rupees, 10% tax will be put. That is nothing but 20 rupees. Next is what? 400. For 400, first 100 rupees tax is free. For the next 300 rupees, tax will be put. That is nothing but 30 rupees. Okay. For the last number, that is nothing but 500. The first 100 will be tax free. The next 400 will actually have a tax of 40 rupees. So you will have to output the total tax. You get the total tax by adding all these numbers. So 40 plus 30 is 70, 70 plus 20 is 90, plus 10 is 100 rupees. So your output will be 100 here. I've changed the numbers a bit. The question was exactly same. The numbers were different. So we don't want to, get in kind of copyright or in kind of trouble. So the numbers in these questions are a little bit changed. The questions are exactly the same. So you will have to write the solution for it. Okay. So let us actually go ahead and write the code for it. It is very simple. You can do it in like 3-4 lines. You can actually write this function in 3-4 lines, but we're going to just go, write it kind of a, in the main function itself. So I just want you guys to give an idea. So let me go to my browser here, and in my browser, I am in my IDE, that is nothing but Online GDB. That is the IDE that I'm using, and I've chosen C++ as my programming language. Okay. So we're going to write this solution in C++. First, I'm just going to go ahead and change the header to IOStream, and I'll use the namespace. Okay, and I'm just going to delete this hello world that is there. So what are we given as an input here? First, we are given n as an input. N is nothing but the number of the size of the array. So I'm just going to take this n as input, and then I'm just going to declare an array of size n like this. Okay, and then I'm going to take the array as input. How do I take it? For int I is equal to 0, I is less than n, I plus plus. I'm just going to go ahead and say C in ARR of I. Okay, so this is the taking array as input here. Okay, so this is size of array as input. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to have to calculate the tax. How do we calculate the tax? Let me first declare an integer variable. Remember, they've said that you have to declare an integer variable. Okay, so I'm going to say tax is equal to 0. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just loop over the given array, right? So I can just say for int I is equal to 0, I is less than n, I plus plus. So I'm just going to loop over the given numbers, and each number I'm going to calculate the tax. So first I will check if each of the number is above 100 or not. Only if it is above 100, then I'm going to calculate the tax. Otherwise, I'm not going to calculate the tax. So I'm just going to say if my ARR of I is greater than 100. Okay, if my ARR of I is greater than 100, only then I'm going to calculate the tax. So how will I calculate the tax? I'm just going to go ahead and say tax is equal to tax plus, I'm just going to say ARR of I, okay, minus 100. So I'm going to subtract the first 100, that is tax free, right? It is greater than 100. So any number that is greater than 100 will have the tax for the remaining amount, not the first 100. So multiplied by 0.1. Okay, this multiplied by 0.1, I'll put a bracket to be safe, but you don't need a bracket. This is nothing but you're converting it into a percentage. So 0.1, if you multiply it, you'll get 10%. Okay, that you'll add it to the previous tax. If you actually want to make it as a shorthand, I'm just going to say plus equal to. Okay, so this is going to calculate the tax. You actually don't need to do anything else. So after that, you can just go ahead and see out the tax. Okay, to just be noticeable, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to have like a decorator here like this to just, you know, show you guys this. Okay, so you have to actually write a function. That function was given in the Tech Mahindra IDE, the exam portal that you were writing it. But here, for our sake, I'm writing it like this. Okay, that's it. That is a solution. That is how easy this problem is. Now, if I run this program, you can see, okay, this program is being compiled and now it is waiting for me to enter. So I'm just going to enter 5. That is the sample input. Right? So I'm just going to enter 100, 200, 300, 400, and 500. So when I press enter, you can see that the tax will be 100 rupees for this given input. Okay, so like that you can write it. So you can actually simplify this much more. You can reduce the number of lines of code. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut this, okay, and I'm going to delete this for loop. And here I'm just going to, let's suppose, delete this comment here. So I will open the for loop here, okay. After reading each number, right, I'm going to take that here only, okay, and I'm going to put the tax calculating variable here. That will reduce the number of lines of code much more. So while taking the input itself, you're actually going to calculate the tax and store it in the tax variable. Even this is going to yield you the same output, okay, with much lesser number of lines of code. So that is the output here. Okay, so this is a very simple program. Just check if the number is greater than 100 or not. If it is greater than 100, just subtract it with 100, multiply it with 0.1 to get the 10% of it and add it to the tax variable. Okay, so with that, we have solved the question. Okay, this was the first question in the examination. Very simple. Okay, so now so this is in C++. You can do the same thing in Java, Python, whatever the programming language you want. It's going to be very easy. Okay, it's going to be the same logic. Now with that, we have finished this first question. Okay, now what we have is we have 25 MCQs remaining. These 25 MCQs are very simple. Let us go over that one by one. So the next question is the website that is most popular among programmers for problem solving is, the options that were given were Twitter, Stack Overflow, W3 Schools, and coding queries. So if you're programmed at least for a bit, anyone can say that the answer is option B, Stack Overflow, because Stack Overflow is the most popular programming language for problem solving, right? So if you don't know Stack Overflow, just go to Google like this and just type Stack Overflow, right? You're going to get Stack Overflow. You can go to this website and you can find answers for questions. Let's suppose people are going to post questions, right? And they want answers for this, so people can answer here. So they're going to post these questions, people will come here and answer. So I hope you know about these websites. Okay, so that is the answer for this question 2, Stack Overflow. So it's more of a general knowledge, as I said, right? Let's go to the next question, the third question. What is the feature of the Chrome browser which allows third parties to add functionality? Applets, plugin, favorites, bookmarks. So you can blindly say the answer is plugin. So plugin, actually they are also called as extensions. They're called as Chrome extensions or Chrome plugins. Okay, so you can use these plugins to actually add third-party functionalities. For example, there are various popular plugins which you can use. For example, to add let's suppose grammar checking, to store passwords, to do various other tasks, right? You can actually use these plugins. So let's go to the next question. That is our fourth question. The fourth question would be, the word process in computer terms is matching with which of the following layman terms? Okay, option A, timing, option B, data, option C, method, option D, task. So what are they asking here is, you have processes in a computer, right? What does this word process actually mean in layman terms? Okay, in the normal general terms. So that would be task, right? A process to a computer is like a task that is given to us. For example, if you are in school, you'll be given a homework. If you're in a company, if you're working somewhere, you'll be given a task that you have to solve, right? You may see big boss, right? Big boss will give you tasks. Just like that, for a computer, there will be process. So the synonym, the word that is matching with process is option D, task here. Let's go to the next question. The protocol that is used by the client software to send emails to the server is option A, POP3, option B, SMTP, option C, HTTP, option D, FTP. So the answer here is SMTP. SMTP stands for Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. Okay. HTTP stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. This is used to send text over the internet. This is used to send files over the internet. This is used to send mail over the internet. This POP3 is actually used to get mails. Okay, this is not used to send mails. Here they have sent mails, right? To send emails, you're going to use SMTP. You can read more about this just by Googling here. So you can say SMTP here. And SMTP stands for Simple Mail Transfer Protocol that allows mail to be sent between computers. Okay, so that is what is given. So you can also read more about the POP3 protocols and other protocols, etc. So it is actually used for receiving. Okay, so for this question that is given, the answer is option B, SMTP. Right. So let's go to the next question. How long can you leave your PC without screen lock and unattended? Oh, that's a very general question. The options that are given are about an hour, infinite time period. Option C, never. I lock it even if I am away for just a few minutes. And option D is, it does not matter. I don't have any sensitive information on my PC and don't have access to any business systems either. So I leave it unattended. I don't care, man. So what is the answer? So this is, they are going to test you with this, right? If let's suppose the company gives you a computer to work from home, right? You should not give that computer to someone else to actually touch it, because you are an employee and that computer will contain sensitive business information. So you should select option C. Okay, that is, you're never going to leave your computer without a lock. So whenever you're going to leave your computer, you have to lock it and then you have to go. That is what you should answer. Okay. So that is the answer for sixth question. Let's go to the next question. Which of the following is the binary equivalent of number 14? Option A 0202, option B 1100, option C 1110, option D 0011. Very simple. We have the number 4. We have to convert it to binary form. Just take this 14 and divide it with 2. 2 sevens 14. The remainder is 0. 2 3 6. The remainder is 1. 2 ones 2s, the remainder is 1. 2 zeros 1, the remainder is 1. So you have to actually take it from bottom to up. So this is the most significant bit and this is the least significant bit. So the 14 in binary, so the 14 that is in decimal form, in binary form is 1110. So you can represent it like this. Okay, you can also just write 1 2 4 8 like this, right? So if you want to write 14, write 8 plus 4 12, 12 plus 2 14. You have to put 0. So that is nothing but option C is the answer. It's very simple. It's child's play. So any fourth standard kid can do this. So option C, 1110 is the answer. The next question is, DBMS uses which of the following languages for accessing data? Option A, query language. Option B, Pascal. Option C, high-level language. Option D, C programming language. The answer, my friends, we know, right? We know that the popular programming language is called as SQL, that is for RDBMS. But all the database management systems use a query language. That is the full form, right? Structured query language, right? That is the full form here. That is nothing but to get a data out of a database, you have to query the database. Okay, that is where the answer is option A, query language. Right? The next question goes like this. A function is not allowed to modify the actual parameters. This semantics is known as option A, pass direct, option B, pass by reference, option C, pass only, option D, pass by value. It's a common question. The answer is pass by value. So what are they actually saying is, in a main function, let's suppose you make a function call from a main function, right? You can call, let's suppose, my fun. This is a function that you have declared. In this my function, okay, if you've taken some parameters, right? If you change the values here, it should not affect the values back in the original variables. That is the pass by value. Okay. So pass by reference is where you pass pointers, and pass only, pass direct does not have any meaning. So answer is option D, pass by value here. Let's go to the next question. That is the 10th question. How many primary keys can be there per table in RDBMS? You should be able to answer this question at least in your sleep. The answer is only 1. For any table, there should be only one primary key. That primary key may be a combination of multiple columns, but there should be only one primary key. Okay, you can Google the same, you're going to get the same answer. But for this, option C is the answer. Let's go to the next one. The parallelogram symbol is used to represent what in flowcharts? Option A, start, stop. Option B, branching. Option C, decision. Option D, input, output. So if you don't know, you write flowcharts, right? So I don't know if you have the habit of writing these. You write an algorithm and you write a flowchart for it, and then you actually write the code. So flowchart is nothing but you do it with some symbols like this, right? So there are multiple symbols, and what is the meaning of each of these symbols? Is the question that they're asking here. So you can actually go to Google and you can say flowchart symbols. Right? Just Google it. You'll be able to find the meaning of each of the symbol in the given flowchart. Right? So if you see here, they've asked us the parallelogram here. Okay, so just better than this, just search parallelogram in flowchart. Okay, so you can just go to any other website and then you can find it. A parallelogram is used to read data or print data. That is nothing but input output. Okay, that is the answer for this question, right? So for the question 11, answer is option D. Okay, you should read more about what symbols is used for what. Okay, so next question is the given options, which of them is an IDE, that is integrated development environment? Option A, Eclipse. Option B, Java. Option C, SDK. Option D, all of the above. It's a dead simple answer. Eclipse is a popular IDE that is used in software development. It is a free and open source project, and most of you must be knowing about Eclipse, right? So if you just search for Eclipse, you'll come to know. You can see here that is the logo of Eclipse. So Eclipse is an IDE. You can actually go ahead to their website and you can see. So Eclipse is an open source IDE. You can download it and you can install it and you can do a lot of different stuff, right? So I personally very much like this IDE. So this is the logo. You can install it, and that is the answer for this question. Question 12, option A. The next question is the rectangle symbol in flowchart is used to represent decision making, branching, processing, input output. There are different symbols, right? One of the symbol is this. Right? This is actually used to start and stop the flowchart. We just saw a question about a parallelogram that looks like this. So the rectangle symbol is actually used for processing. You do any processing, right? You assign some value, you know, do multiple things, right? All these comes under processing, and that is used by rectangle. And there is a symbol called rhombus, and you can use this rhombus for conditionals. Okay, that is nothing but decision. But for this question, the rectangle symbol is actually used for processing. Okay, so let's go for the next question. That is nothing but the 14th question. In C programming, the default storage class for the local variables is option A, extern. Option B, static. Option C, auto. Option D, register. The answer is very simple. It is auto. So you should know about different storage classes, right? The static means the variable will hold the value. That means only one time the allocation is going to happen. Auto is the default one. Register is where your memory is stored in register. Extern is a storage class where your variable is actually defined in some other external file. Right? So you should know about this. And the default one is actually auto here. Okay. Let's go for the next question. The 15th question: to change the structure of a table in SQL, which of the following command would you use? Okay. So option A, delete. Option B, alter. Option C, modify. Option D, update. The answer is simple. It is alter command, right? So what do you mean by changing the structure of a table is nothing but adding or deleting columns, right? To add a column, you can use alter. So you can say alter table. You can say users. You can say add column, and you can give column name, right? Let's suppose I want to add new column as to address, right? I can say address string. So address is a combination of strings, right? So you can do all those things. So the answer is option B, alter. The next question is, which of the following tool is used to check whether a remote computer is reachable over the network or not? Right? So this, the options are scanner, netmon, ping, telnet. The answer is ping. Right? What you can do is you can actually go to the command line and you can just type ping google.com or something, right? So when you type this, what happens is your computer is going to send some number of packets to the Google server, and it is going to check if those packets come back or not. If it does come back, then it is saying that, okay, this computer is online. If it does not come back, then it is going to say, oh, sorry, this is offline. So ping is the command. Okay, you can try it on your computer as well. Let's go to the next question. That is the 17th question. A big problem is divided into smaller functions and procedures. Why? Option A, some languages make it compulsory. Option B, for better reusability. Option C, to increase performance. Option D, none of the above. The answer is obvious. You have to divide it into smaller parts and functions, and you can use it again, right? You don't need to write those code again. You can call that function back, right? So the answer would be for better reusability. That is why we are going to divide the big code into smaller functions and procedures. Let's go to the next question. The piece of information specific to the user stored by a website on the user's machine is known as a URL, cookie, token, pointer. Oh God, we know this, right? If you go to any single website now, you get that annoying pop-up saying allow cookies, right? So that is why the answer is option B, cookie. So cookie is a file that a website will store on your computer, okay, to actually store your specific information. So using cookies, they will be able to track you, right? They'll create a cookie to track what websites you're visiting, what are you interested in, and using those cookies, they actually personalize advertisements for you. A lot of things is happening using cookies, okay? And that's why there are EU regulations to actually make any website that is actually using cookies to show a prompt saying we are going to use cookies, and you have to click allow every single time, okay? So that's the answer for this question. For the next question, the status code for a successful browser request is what? Option A, 200, option B, 300, option C, 400, option D, 500. And it is very simple. Option A, 200. Right? Whenever you send a request, right, what the browser does is you have your browser. Browser will send a request to the server that is sitting at some location. Right? Let's suppose it's a Google server. And when it sends back a message, it will send a code called 200. That is something. But hey, it is successful. I received the message. You might know other status codes like 404 not found, right? When a file is not found in a server, it is going to send that code. So there are different codes which you can actually study and use it while web development or backend development and so on. The next question is the operating system that is self-contained in a device and resident in a ROM. There is the read-only memory is an online system, an embedded OS, and Unix OS or DOS OS. So students from electronics background will mostly know this. It is called as an embedded operating system. You are using some chips for specific purposes, right? So you're going to create an operating system that you will embed in that specific chip to actually perform some specific operations, right? You cannot install Windows in that chip, right? You cannot install Linux in that chip. You can use a variation of an operating system. You can take a Linux kernel, you can modify it, you can build your own thing, and you can embed it in that chip. That is called as an embedded operating system. It's more of a general knowledge. You don't need to know to program embedded systems, but you need to know what embedded system is. That's it to answer this question. So that is why I said this is more of a general knowledge kind of a examination. It was very easy. The next question is 21st question. The part of a C program that is not visible to the compiler, okay, is dash. So anyone can tell this in their sleep. The answer would be comment, right? You are going to do a lot of things in C program. You are going to declare a variable. You can say int a. I don't know what is a derivation in C program. You have functions. You can write functions, right? All these functions are actually compiled, but you write a comment, right? Taking input or something like that. All these comments are not given to your compiler, okay? Because it is only for the developer's knowledge to understand what is happening, to explain the logic, or to explain what this function is actually for, and so on, right? You can write literally anything in the comment and your compiler won't care. So that's the answer here. Next question is 22. The most used language for system programming among the following is C, Java, JavaScript, Visual Basics. The most used is obviously C programming language. C programming language is very near to your system, and in developing all the operating systems, etc., C programming is used. So if you take your Windows operating system, your Mac, your Linux, all these things have C programming implementation. So C is able to do kernel level operations. It can manipulate memories. It can actually talk to registers. You can embed assembly level code in C programming, and it is very powerful for system programming. The next question is a multi-threading feature in a programming language is useful for option A, running same program by multiple users. Option B, running multiple programs at the same time. Option C, running different parts of a program at the same time. Option D, dividing long program into small section. Now, what is a multi-threading is? Given a program, in multi-threading, what you do is you split that program into multiple threads and you can run them parallelly. Okay, and that is why the answer is option C. Right? You can have a big program and you can create multiple threads to execute some part of the program. Right? You can so let's suppose this will execute first part, this will execute second part, this will execute third part of the program. So that is how you can do actually multi-threading. So multi-threading is useful for running different parts of a same program at the same time. Okay, it is not a serial execution, but it is multi-threaded. That is what is the meaning. Right? This is the concept of operating systems, and you can check it out. The next question is, which of the following data type can be used in C programming to store the names of employees? Option A, long. Option B, character array. Option C, enum. Option D, struct. Now, there was a bit of confusion with this, and my answer for this question would be enum. Okay. So enum, in enum, you can actually store the names of employees. Let's suppose you want to store Ramesh, you want to store Suresh, right? You want to store whatever it is, James, or whatever it is, right? You cannot use a character array because it can only store characters. You cannot store names. Name is nothing but a string. To store a string, you cannot use long, you cannot use struct, because struct will need some data type inside, right? This is not a primary data type, right? So that is why you can actually use enum. So enum can store strings, and you can learn more about enum here, right? So you can type enum and you can take a look at these enum data types where you can actually store these strings, right? You can see here. In this code, they have stored the name of the days of the week like this. So this is how you can actually store the name of employees as well. Okay, that is what I think, and that is what my answer is. If you have other answer for this, you can prove me wrong as well. Please go to the comment section and bombard us with the correct answers. If any of the answers that I've given is wrong, please feel free to justify your answer, give the correct answer. Okay, I'm not always right. Let's go to the next question. That is the 25th question. Which of the following is the decimal equivalent of the number 14 in octal? Okay, so option A 8, option B 10, option C 12, option D 14. So what they are saying is you have a number 14 that is in octal form and you need to convert it into decimal format. Very simple. Just take just like a binary number, right? Just take 1 and 8, right? Write 14. That is nothing but 1 times 8 plus 4 times 1. There is going to be nothing but 8 plus 4. That is going to be nothing but 12. So option C is the answer. So 14 in octal is nothing but 12 in decimal. Okay, that is how you can answer this question. That is nothing but option C, 12 is the correct answer. Now let us go for the last question of the Tech Mahindra examination, and that is this. A logical process or a set of rules to be followed in calculations or other program solving operations is known as option A, flowchart, option B, algorithm, option C, interpreter, option D, application. So whenever you are given a program or any calculation, you have to solve it, right? To solve it, you need to have a step-by-step procedure. And what is that? You've learned it in like third standard, fifth standard. An algorithm is a step-by-step procedure to solve a problem. That is why this is the answer. Option B, algorithm is the answer for this question, right? An algorithm is like a step-by-step solution. To do everything, there is an algorithm. If you want to cook, let's suppose rajma chawal, right? There is an algorithm, there is a recipe, there is a step-by-step procedure in which you cook that rajma, right? You cook that chawal, whatever it is, right? You have a step-by-step. So even in the calculation, even in programming, you have that step-by-step solution that is known as algorithm. So to solve any kind of problems, right, you need to know the algorithm. So you need to have that ability to form that algorithm by yourself and solve that program. And that comes by practice. So I urge all of you guys to practice, and then you'll be able to solve any kind of examination. This examination was very easy, but don't take it for granted. The other examinations may be difficult, so please start practicing. So with that, we have come to the end of this video. And thank you for watching Online Study for You. Keep supporting us. Click on that subscribe button and please press the bell icon for the notification as well. And I'm Sridhar Agade signing off. Meet you in the next video. Until then, keep studying.